I think there's something so powerful in the idea that none of us know what the show is going to be when we sit down at the table. We all have an idea, we all have a plan, but the real answer is what do we spend 10 days building together that the audience is going to go on that same journey with us, 6 months later.
I love Encountering Party. I binged all the episodes in one day.
Oh,
Yeah!
wow.
I love this for me mostly.
Well, that's it. We're done,
End of junket. We did
End
it.
of interview.
Lock it.
It's so great. I was such a fan of it from the get-go. Can you talk to me a little bit about working with Wizards of the Coast to bring this from its original podcast form into this new format with the new campaign?
Yeah, it's actually, I actually really enjoy talking about this because, when we had we'd actually been shopping the show around to a couple of studios that were interested before we ended up landing on E1. But there was some contractual stuff going on with the making of the movie that, for obvious reasons, we weren't privy to. But it came time for us to approach Wizards about the license, which Ned kind of set up the meeting for us. And when we explained to them the idea about the show, about what it was about Encounter Party, why it was different, and why we might want to considering it doing it this way, which was, hey, look, we can't convince people, this is a really outside joke, but late night Comedy Central programming doesn't exist anymore. So you're going to have a hard time trying to sell people and network TVs 2 to 3 hour gameplay sessions. So if we remove all of the extra stuff, can we get it down to an hour? So when we approached Wizards, they were the ones who were like, wow, we think you guys have actually figured this out. We think you have the way that we can go to network with this. And they are the ones who sent us to Entertainment One, who made the movie and ended up making all of these other programs. So in all honesty, working with them on the pre-production side, they were very conscientious about making sure that all the representation we tried to bring with our cast was sort of up to speed. They were very supportive of keeping everyone from the original cast, which was a big worry for us, that were they going to try and replace us all with personalities, and they didn't. They decided
it was their idea. Yeah. We came into that meeting being like, well, if it gets broached, and they're like, so it's the original cast and we think we should add one more to the table. And we were like, oh, great.
Let's do it. And in all fairness, in complete honesty, I gave them an elevator pitch of what I wanted the campaign to be. I said, hey, look, here's the overarching idea that I want. Here's sort of the big reveal. Here's sort of what everything is about. Can I do this with your stuff? And they were like, yeah, this sounds like a cool idea. And then you just work with them and you work with DEI agencies to make sure that, hey, you can't really say this, or I don't know if you noticed that maybe this isn't the right time to tackle this material. But other than that, they really kind of left us alone creatively, which was a big boost of confidence.
I've been playing this game since I was 8 years old. I love Dungeons and Dragons. And I was so excited to work with Wizards of the Coast. And I am thrilled to report that they were just as much a joy to work with as I was hopeful for. They were really wonderful. They supported us at every step of the way. They allowed the show that we made to feel like Encounter Party. Fans of the podcast are going to feel like this is a new elevation of the show they know and love. Like, it feels like us. And that is, I think, a testament to Wizards letting us drive the boat on what this show is and how it runs. And they really did their best to not just take our ideas and run with them, but to support them and say hey, if you do that, did you know you can do this? And we'd be like, oh my God, it was awesome. Working with Wizards was a joy. And I really can't thank them enough for, I say this a lot, but when a show like ours exists in the indie space, we built this show with the dream of a TV show. The idea of the podcast was always to prove the idea for the TV show you've now watched. But it's still, I think, a testament to them that they took a call from us, that we were able to put our pitch together, but that they gave us the space to come in and say, we might be coming from an indie place, but we think we have the idea ready for network. And they not only took the call, they were instantly invested in helping us solve problems. They really jumped in whole hog with us. And I think it was a wonderful collaboration.
I think it was also a little serendipitous because we didn't know that they were in development of Dungeons and Dragons Adventures as the
Yeah.
channel.
What an interesting thing to discover.
I think while we were pitching, I ended up meeting Matt Lillard at a convention, and he revealed that they were also working on something, which ends up being Purple Worm Faster Kill Kill. So I think we also possibly walked in the door at the right time, where they were trying to figure out how they could get this kind of programming on network TV. And when we came in and say, hey, we have an hour-long program that doesn't sacrifice any content, and we actually have a large viewer base or a listener base at the time of people who don't even play Dungeons and Dragons. They just like this new way of telling a fantasy story. I think it's worked out for everybody. So hopefully, we get multiple seasons so we can kind of see this full thing grow.
I definitely hope so, because I'm a big actual play fan. I'm used to the 4-hour shows. 1 hour.
Sure. Well, yeah,
are awesome.
We talked about this from the beginning. Brian and I aren't interested in showing up into someone else's space and competing with them. Like, we always wanted to make a new show, something that felt like you could consume it and your favorite show, that we could be your favorite show, but you have time to watch others. Like, whatever the math is, the 60-minute thing was purely built around, not only did we want to prove that you could do this for network television, which was our original idea back in 2018, but also people are making incredible 3-hour programs, and there's only so many hours in the day for viewers. So at some point, if you're walking in with a new one, your pitch is, I'm going to take your viewers. We didn't want to do that. Like, that's not us. We're part of this community too. We love this community, both the AP community, the TTRPG community. Like, we're in it. We wanted to make something that felt new to the space. And, I hope people watch the show and let us know how they feel about that. But I feel, as someone who consumes a lot of actual play, that this program feels different. And we're not interested in being better. We're not interested in being worse. We're interested in doing something new with this incredible art form to say, like, what else does this space have? And that's where Encounter Party really comes from.
And having seen the episodes, hopefully you can agree that we don't waste any time. The very first line of the show will show you how committed we are to getting people invested and not wasting anybody's time. Let's go. Let's play. Yeah. Let's have fun.
It's an intense start. I will say that without.
Yes, it is, Caitlin.
One of the things I really liked is that you were able to incorporate puzzles and kind of these asides with the players that you don't usually see in actual plays, but are more of a home game situation. Can you talk about wanting to keep that element of play for people that do understand and play D&D while also kind of introducing it to fans that have maybe never played the game?
I'm a big mystery guy. I've found that over the course of writing this campaign and writing the previous one, that I seem to have a proclivity to mystery thrillers. I think that type of stuff has always made me feel the most engaged. Some of my favorite television shows are just sort of murder mysteries because I feel like I get to participate with what's going on. And the show is conscientious of me actively viewing them, and that sort of active viewership rather than passive viewership also makes me feel like I'm not wasting my time watching a program, that I'm having an experience. So it was always the goal whenever I've been running campaigns. I am a forever DM, but as long as I've been doing it, I always try and make sure that there's stuff for people to do and solve, because that has two things. Number one, it gets the audience involved. If you want to pause, if you have the capacity to pause and on later versions of the show, you can talk and you can try and solve things. And there's a mystery that you can talk to your friends about. And that creates social engagement, which is part of our mission. We're trying to remove our personal experience from the show and just focus on the story. But we also understand that there's this social engagement that's necessary for D&D. So I'm going to write you a story that allows you guys to go do that on your own without needing our approval for you to go do it. The other thing that it does is it allows the table to talk to each other and problem solve, and it allows the table to support each other instead of constantly battling me. So it allows people to go, hey, you want to go try and solve this clue. You want to go investigate this thing. I'm going to give you abilities that help you do that better. Let's score a victory together instead of constantly feeling like you have to roll against the DM. It also just makes it so that they get more time without me. Like DMs sometimes can take over the entire performance, and we don't want that. There's 7 of us, and it's a story about their characters, not mine. So that gives us a lot of interesting engagement at the table, which is players strategizing in character and out of character, talking to each other, which is something that an audience is going to feel more attached to. You're going to feel like part of a circle that's trying to figure out, rather than more than you could ever feel about Ned trying to roll an insight against an NPC.
Something Brian said to me during the podcast, we had a puzzle, and Brian said to me off mic, it was the end of the day, we were eating dinner, and he said, like, it would be so cool to me if someone did this in their home game. And that's one of the things we really take to our show, is we want it to feel every piece of our show is doable at home. We don't do things that you can't recreate at home. And part of that is to give people ideas for their home games. And part of that is to make people pause and do it along with us, however they want to experience that. But something we talked about when we were building how we were going to focus our actors and how we were going to focus our characters and how we were going to like design the set and how we were going to do all these things, the conversation was always, can people see the game they know and love and play at home in our show? Does it have different resources? Sure. Does it have moving lights you don't have at home? Absolutely. But at its core, our experience feels familiar. And that was very intentional, that it never felt like something you aren't doing at home. We didn't want like the elevation part of being a television program to be inside a level of the game that isn't generally present in a home game. And that was something, puzzles instantly are a thing that I use at my home tables all the time. Like, that feels fun. And I think that's really a choice we've been making since 2018 when we created the show.
I love that choice. And Ned, I love your character specifically because
thank you. Me too.
He's great, but I love your interpretation of Bard and Rogue because it's so rare that we see this version. Can you talk about a little bit about what inspired you during your character creation process?
100%. I came to Brian first and foremost and said, as executive producer who knows nothing about story, I don't know anything about any of the other characters. We built our characters completely siloed with Brian. I said, I'm going to make the Swiss Army knife at the table. And I started building a mechanical build that allowed me to be pretty good at almost anything and very good at certain things. And that was where Rogue Bard started. But then once we settled on Rogue Bard, I said, rogues and bards are canonically agents of chaos at a D&D table. And what a terrible choice for a 48-minute television program. So I said to Brian, I'm going to build a character on 2 real ideas that I'm going to focus every decision I make on. Number 1, I want to build the most positive person anyone's ever met at a D&D table. He chooses positivity at every moment. And I think as the show progresses, it means you get to start to ask, well, why isn't he choosing positivity in this moment? It creates a fun story that is the opposite of what people are used to, of dark backstory and like brooding care. Like, he is just a beacon of, I am your friend. I'm going to lift you up. And that was the first decision. And the second one, as I said, he's a merchant. Yes, I am using the mechanics of both Bard and Rogue, but his Bard is he's a writer. He's a poet, right? What is his Rogue? Rogue is a series of skills that he was trained in specifically to further his career, which is in the servant of merchantdom. And in doing so, that character became something that I think is unlike how most people play a Bard Rogue instinctively. And I hope that inspires other people to say, like, oh, how else can I play a paladin? How else can I play a warlock, right? We don't have to follow the path that is, I don't want to say obvious, but is archetypal. You can use these mechanics to tell a different kind of story. And that's where Flick came from.
When we were doing characters and they were bringing their characters, I asked everyone to bring to me a character, not a mechanic. And so we came with these characters. And then once they had the characters, we started figuring out, okay, what mechanics would fit this character? And then, okay, this spell or this ability would work. And then how would that translate into a character class? So when Ned said, man, there's some Bard, there's some Rogue, and then decided to multi-class with it, that was really exciting. I think he really lock down this sort of combination that was very unique. Flick's a great character.
I love Flick.
I agree. And then can you talk to me about what Khary Payton brings to the table? Because I love his play style. I fell in love with him on Critical Role, and I was so excited to see him in this.
My biggest fear when we were expanding the table, our table, the six from podcast 1, David's been with us in season 2 of the podcast. So we've all been together for 3-4 years, and we have a vibe. We specifically, when we first built the podcast, we did a nationwide casting call, and we were looking for different people who would bring something, and no two characters feels alike, no two play styles feels alike. And we found the rhythm. Our team is very good at knowing whose story it is when and staying out of the way. Like we have honed in how our table works. Adding a new person made me very stressed. And because of the way we built the show, like our session 0 was we made burner characters and we played with Khary completely disconnected from the show. No one knew each other's characters. No one knew each other's stories. No one knew each other's art. Like it was a completely blind run-in at minute 1 of that first episode on purpose so that reactions could be real. My biggest fear was that Khary is a brilliant actor. Would he slot in at the table? And within seconds, it was like I've known Khary my whole life. I talk to this man all the time. Phone calls, texts. He is a dear friend, but he became a dear friend 12 seconds into it. That can only be described as a brilliant level of performance, a brilliant level of empathy. I think the fact that Khary came in and immediately allowed our table to be 7 people, not Khary and his friends, is something that you don't always get when you add someone with the profile of Khary Payton to a table like ours. And it is a testament to how incredible that man is and how willing he was to go on our journey that I think makes Tolo and Khary, I mean, fans are they're going to lose their mind over him. His style of play is so brilliant, and he brings something to our table none of us did. He's a new piece to our puzzle that we didn't even know we were missing. Brian, you can continue.
We're going to get really technical here as to the actual qualities that Khary Payton does to make our show a success. First of all, he's an unbelievable human being. He's so nice. He's so fantastic. He's such a great family man. Like he's just unbelievably generous in all aspects of his world. So 2 major things that Khary did that helped us. Number 1, Khary is rather fearless as an actor. And what that means is that also because of the character he built in Tolo, and I'm always fascinated. Tolo's 18. So, and we had a lot of success when we did the first podcast when Sarah Babe decided to make a 19-year-old character. Like people who jump in with an adolescent bring something very fruitful to the table. And this sort of abandonment of conscious that just sort of jumps in. And Khary is playing with me for the first time. So he hasn't been scarred by all of my storytelling twists and turns yet, which I think the other players have sort of become wary. There are moments, I think, where David's like, I'm going to try not to meta, but I know who you are, so I'm going to go in this direction. And Khary doesn't have that jade yet, so he just goes, which can be very helpful to get us from point A to B. It also helps me because I do know the people at the table. We've been playing for a long time, and we've been playing at this sort of professional level for a long time. So I think sometimes, I'm not going to pretend like sometimes I'm not manipulating things for shock value, or I know where people are going to go. So Khary's sort of new additional wild value kept me on my toes and kept me honest in a lot of ways. Also, we had 5 returning cast members to our show. And as a group,
6, including you.
Well, I mean, yeah, I guess, yes, players, 5 players, characters, they have their strengths and they have their weaknesses. And there's a couple of holes here or there that I kind of miss having the ability to drop storytelling wise, because it's just kind of a blind spot for them. Nothing critical. It's just how we are. And Khary somehow managed to fill that slot. So especially in the sort of beginning scenario on the boat, Khary would piece some things together. And I don't know if the camera's on me or not, but I'm going, oh, thank God Thank God they put this together. Oh my God. I didn't want to have to burn 20 minutes trying to lead them to this answer. He sees some things that are obvious connections that are just not on anyone else's radar that really helped us save a lot of time and therefore a lot of money in filming. So
Caitlin, each episode is 3 hours and 15 minutes is the average episode down to 48 minutes. We are moving. And so we recorded for 10 days in LA, 2 Monday to Friday weeks, and we recorded for 7 hours a day. And that ended up being 22 episodes, and we actually really finished the story at the end of day 9, and then day 10 was like insert shot miniature shots if we needed them, that kind of thing. And so
that's more than 2 episodes a day.
Correct. We were averaging about 2.25 episodes a day. And so something that I think is really fun about our show is like we wear the same outfits every episode. There's a lot of reasons for that. When we record our show, we have ideas, but no one knows where episodes are going to start or end at any time. That decision is made in post by me. And so it would be really weird if halfway through episode 3, Khary's in a new outfit and we just never talk about it. So there's a lot of fun there in that, with a scripted television show, where the episodes drop, where the cliffhangers are. Brian brilliantly puts a lot of moments that could be cliffhangers into our show because they're either going to be ad breaks or they're going to be the end of an episode. But we do not know that until the whole thing is recorded and we're in the editing booth saying, what are the 48 minutes that tell this story? And I think there's something so powerful in the idea that none of us know what the show is going to be when we sit down at the table. We all have an idea. We all have a plan. But the real answer is, what do we spend 10 days building together that the audience is going to go on that same journey with us, 6 months later?
Well, thank you so much for taking the time to talk to me. I could talk to you guys about this show all day.
So
Caitlin, you call us whenever.